A monstrous face of pure flame erupts, incinerating everything in its path. The puppeteer Dees is enraged. His entire stockpile of minions is gone. The fiery being seems to mock them for attacking it right after it awoke. But before it can act, dark, binding threads ensnare the creature of fire. The attack comes from a new player, her nails glowing with sinister energy. A red-haired assassin confirms the target is trapped, and Dees prepares his move. He unleashes a devastating technique of his own, Miasma Stakes. A sphere of dark, corrupting energy hurtles toward the captured lord. The resulting explosion of light and shadow tears through the chamber. Dees roars in triumph, already declaring himself a legendary Lord Slayer. But as the smoke clears, Dees' triumphant roar dies in his throat. The mighty Fire Lord has been reduced to a tiny spirit, and it's getting away. His red-haired partner couldn't care less, leaving him to deal with the escapee. After all, their true mission, the destruction of the Purification Shrine, is complete. Everything, it seems, is going exactly according to their master's plan. A sinister new figure reveals their grand design, to flood the island with miasma. As darkness falls, they declare the beginning of a new, corrupted age. The scene cuts to the pristine and famous Victor Island, a jarring change of pace. We learn this was the site of a legendary war against the underworld 300 years ago. Now it's home to the Victor Knight Academy, where the sounds of battle still echo. But far from the machinations of evil, a tiny fairy soars through the academy skies. Her peaceful flight is abruptly cut short by an unseen force. She's sent ricocheting between invisible blades in a frantic training exercise. Tossed about like a rag doll, she plummets helplessly toward the ground. The terrified creature slams hard against a stone wall, her journey ending in tears. But before she can fall, a young knight in training catches her mid-swing. This is Dell, a second-year student who just saved her from a very flat fate. He gently chides the tiny creature for wandering into such a dangerous place. Dell warns her that this area is off-limits as his opponents don't hold back. And it seems his opponents are soulless training puppets with unnervingly sinister smiles. Dell reflects on his troublesome gift, the ability to see the unseen. His eyes, tinged with a strange energy, can perceive hidden beings like fairies. And more importantly, the dark malice radiating from other people. A sudden attack from behind is parried with lightning speed. His opponent's sword clatters uselessly to the stone floor. The attacker, another student, offers a flimsy apology to Dell. He claims it was just an accident, that his sword simply slipped. Dell plays along, brushing off the clearly intentional attack with a smile. But his opponent is curious, asking who Dell was talking to just moments before. Dell quickly covers, saying he was just talking to himself. His opponent sneers, threatening to report him to the church for heresy. Dell's expression hardens, the casual facade completely gone. He stands dwarfed by a knight statue, a heavy shadow falling over him. Through Dell's eyes, we see the truth, a dark malice clinging to his tormentor. He realizes this isn't just bullying anymore, it's becoming truly dangerous. He calls this energy a disgusting haze, a constant presence in his vision. Even the little fairy he saved recoils in terror from this unseen corruption. This dark energy isn't just on people, it's spreading across the entire island. He questions the nature of these strange, smiling creatures born from the haze. His dark thoughts are shattered by a cheerful girl calling him little brother. A girl's face suddenly fills his vision, shouting about an opening he clearly missed. Dell sighs in relief. It's just his older sister, Marina, a popular figure at the academy. She charges at him, sword drawn, declaring that she's been worried sick. Dell effortlessly parries her strike, insisting he's just trying to stay out of trouble. Their blades clash in a flurry of sparks, drawing the attention of the entire courtyard. As they spar, Marina lectures him on his standoffish nature and top-tier skills. She claims his quiet confidence comes off as arrogant and unpleasant to others. And apparently his top-tier brooding is making his big sister feel lonely. She demands to know where he's been sneaking off to after class and on holidays. Dell calmly explains he just needs a place to relax, away from her many friends. Her friends cheer from the sidelines, clearly enjoying the spectacle. But one girl watches with a more contemplative, knowing gaze. Marina's concern quickly turns to wild accusations of a secret girlfriend. Her overprotective rage boils over into a comical sibling beatdown. High above, the Academy's bell tower stands silent witness to the chaos. Finally getting him in a headlock, she declares a temporary truce. But her playful anger melts away into genuine sudden concern. Dell is caught completely off guard by her abrupt change in tone. He tries to brush it off, but she gently takes his hand, unconvinced. For a moment, the tough facade breaks, revealing a sister's true worry. She believes if he just opened up, everyone would see the good in him. Del recognizes this is just her way of being a caring, meddling older sister. With a final wave, Marina leaves him alone with his thoughts. He can't help but smile. She's not wrong after all. Watching her from afar, he feels like his sister can see right through him. He wonders if he can ever confess the truth, that he's a heretic. Turning to his tiny companion, he tells the fairy it's time for her to go home. But the little creature seems stubbornly determined to stick by his side. His eyes fall on the familiar dark haze, asking if it destroyed her home. The question earns him a tiny, furious tantrum right on top of his head. Defeated by the tiny tantrum, Del gives in and tells the fairy to follow him. He's taking her to a place secret even from his family, unlike his sister's crowded hideouts. He leads the way down a secluded path past the encroaching haze to a hidden grotto. Inside, a boy named Ren is already mid-panic, scolding the fairy for touching his plants. He lectures them on the fragility of the flowers, completely unaware of the dark shape behind him. Nearby, a blonde girl relaxes in a hammock, seemingly unbothered by the ominous presence. Del watches his strange friends, the only people who share his secret world. The presence is a being of pure miasma, formed from the same smiling creatures he sees everywhere. But a new entity arrives, its massive paw stepping into their mana-filled sanctuary. The tiny spirit of the Fire Lord has found the perfect place to regain its terrifying power. The little fairy is sent flying by a sudden burst of flame, shocking everyone. Ren rushes forward, sensing the sudden eruption of fire and calling out in alarm. His face is a mask of pure concern as he runs toward the disturbance. He finds a small, cat-like creature with a flaming tail, curled up and injured. Del and the other fairies can only stare, completely bewildered by the new arrival. Del can't believe it. First a stray fairy and now a stray cat has found his hideout. But high above them, the Academy's bell tower stands silent watch. A cloaked figure sits perched, declaring the long chase is finally over. He reveals a twisted, monstrous face, his eyes glowing with sinister intent. The hunter vows to extinguish the last embers of his weakened prey for good. We're pulled into the Fire Lord's past, a consciousness trapped in darkness. Through the flames of its prison, it saw a bright and beautiful world, a stark contrast to its own reality, which was nothing but shadow. And from that darkness, a single burning desire began to take shape. It vowed to one day break free and claim that world for itself. Back in the present, that same resolve flickers in the eyes of the tiny spirit. But this isn't Del's grotto. It's now in a strange, cozy cabin. The little creature climbs from its box, its mind seemingly made up. It pads toward an open door, drawn by the light from the outside world. But a sudden memory stops it, a vision of a younger, happier version of itself. The memory is of a peaceful cabin, surrounded by a lush and vibrant garden. A younger, carefree version of the spirit leaps through the air with pure joy. It tumbles clumsily across the ground, kicking up dirt in its playful haste. The little cub continues to roll and bound through the idyllic scenery. Its journey ends in a comical faceplant, much to the shock of the local fairies. But it sits up proudly, completely unfazed by its less than graceful landing. The memory is of a simple time, rolling happily in a field of flowers. Even a future Lord of Destruction, it seems, needs to stop and smell the roses. The vision fades and the spirit awakens to find Del watching over it with concern. It confirms that it's feeling better, and Del seems relieved by the news. Del's relief is cut short by a sudden dawning realization. He's sent flying as the tiny creature speaks, deeply offended to be called a cat. Covered in fairies, Del can only stammer in utter surprise. He admits he's never met a talking fairy, earning a sharp rebuke from the spirit. The creature smugly decides it must educate these simpletons. It leaps onto a nearby tree stump, preparing for a grand introduction. Del and the fairies gather around, an unwilling audience for the tiny creature's speech. Our boy looks thoroughly unimpressed by all the theatrics. But a sudden eruption of flame quickly grabs his attention. The spirit roars, declaring itself the great and mighty Lord of Fire, Agni. The fairies erupt in cheers, but Del is clearly not impressed by the theatrics. He dismissively asks what the cat fairy wants, earning a furious outburst from Agni. The mighty lord is immediately put on chore duty, much to its utter disbelief. Del explains he needs all the help he can get against the encroaching miasma. The tiny spirit hits him with a low blow, questioning his distinct lack of friends. The miasma creature chimes in, demanding an offering for its power, suggesting Agni, but it quickly changes its mind, demanding human food, which only annoys the Fire Lord. Agni can only judge the creature's crude demands as utterly uncultured. Nearby, the blonde fairy calmly watches another tendril of darkness slither past. Suddenly, a massive shadowy appendage swings down, catching Del completely by surprise. Del shouts in alarm. the little fairy clinging to him in fright. The disturbance came from near Ren, who seems oblivious to the purple tendril. Wasting no time, Del draws his sword and rushes to investigate. He spots the creature and immediately warns his friends to stay back. But he quickly dismisses it as a simple snake, trying to shoo it away. The snake immediately proves him wrong, its red eyes glowing as it coils his sword. The single tendril explodes into a swarm of shadowy serpents, trapping Del. His eyes widen in horror. This is the same miasma he's been seeing everywhere. The creatures erupt in a wave of dark power, blasting him off his feet. He can only watch as the sanctuary's trees are corrupted into monstrous forms. Del can only stare as the dark energy twists his sanctuary into a nightmare. Fueled by rage, he lunges forward, determined to fight back against the corruption. But Agni holds him back, ordering him to stop his reckless charge. The tiny lord explains that without purification, he's powerless against miasma. The word echoes in Del's mind. He finally has a name for this dark haze. Agni puffs out its chest, deciding to show the kid how a real lord handles things. It unleashes a massive torrent of flame, a roar of pure, concentrated fire. The inferno completely engulfs the corrupted tree, burning the darkness away. Del is thrown back by the sheer force of the blast, shielding himself from the heat. As the flames die down, the miasma is gone, leaving only embers in the sky. But Agni is unimpressed. The miasma is still standing, so it prepares another blast. But Del's unique vision picks up on something the Fire Lord completely missed. His eyes glow with that familiar energy, seeing past the surface-level corruption. Deep within the twisted wood, he spots the source of the infection. A miasma core. He shouts to Agni, directing the tiny lord to the creature's hidden weak point. The Fire Lord is genuinely impressed, retracting its earlier blockhead comment. It finally asks for his name, and our boy formally introduces himself as Del. With a plan now in place, Agni instructs Del to get it into firing position. The warning is dire. Touching the miasma will drain his life force. So no pressure. With a final command to keep moving, Del prepares to dash through the corrupted field. With Agni perched on his head like a very angry hat, Del begins his charge. He plunges headfirst into the swirling vortex of miasma tendrils. His expression is grimly focused, weaving through the deadly corruption. He ducks and weaves, the dark energy lashing out at every turn. Each step is a calculated risk, a dance with life-draining shadows. He carves a path forward, his blade a blur of light against the darkness. But the creature is adapting, forming a dense shield around its core. A stray tendril catches him off guard, sending a jolt of pain through him. Agni immediately calls for a retreat. The direct approach has clearly failed. But it's too late. The miasma has already begun to ensnare him. But fueled by Ren's off-screen rage, Del refuses to be consumed by the darkness. He tears himself free from the shadows, his eyes locked on the prize. With the core in sight, he yells for Agni to prepare the final attack. The tiny lord unleashes its ultimate technique, the flame purification roar. A concentrated blast of holy fire slams directly into the miasma's heart. The battle is over, leaving Del sitting amidst the smoldering remains of his sanctuary. He stares into the embers, the reality of this dark threat finally sinking in. Turning to his companion, he asks if this is the true face of miasma. But his question is met with silence as Agni suddenly goes limp. The mighty Fire Lord has run out of juice, lamenting its own pathetic state. Del holds the exhausted Agni, who explains its power is nearly gone. But the tiny lord senses a powerful life essence in their hidden sanctuary. It explains that this place is overflowing with the very source of life, an energy born only from land that is nurtured with compassion and care. Agni confidently declares that resting here will restore its power in no time. Del can't help but smile, relieved to have a solution for his new friend. He sits peacefully in the restored grotto, genuinely thanking the tiny lord. Agni, of course, plays it cool, turning away with a dismissive huff. But its pride quickly gives way to demands for a proper offering. It wants human food, a demand that sounds suspiciously familiar to Del. Agni's demands for meat echo through the grotto, but Del tells it to wait. As the sun begins to set over the academy, a quiet evening descends. But back in the grotto, Agni sulks, its grand demands unmet. A mighty lord, defeated by the simple concept of waiting for dinner. It turns with a snarl, impatiently demanding Del hurry with its meal. But its tantrum is cut short by a massive, shadowy hand descending from above. The tiny lord can only stare in wide-eyed horror at the sudden attack. In a flash of movement, the shadowy appendage is parried. Del stands guard, his sword deflecting the blow meant for Agni. He plants his feet firmly, ready to defend his sanctuary once more. Del realizes his sword alone was useless against the miasma's corruption. He questions if he can protect his sanctuary without Agni's power. The weight of this new threat brings him to the verge of despair. He fears he's destined to remain a powerless shadow forever. We learn the church despises heretics for their ability to connect with non-humans. This fear stems from a potential connection to the dreaded underworld king. But nuance is lost. Heretics are simply branded as bringers of misfortune. Meanwhile, life at the academy continues on, oblivious to these dark truths. The dining hall is filled with the sounds of students enjoying their evening meal, and it seems even a brooding heretic has to stop for dinner eventually. Other students scramble away, apologizing for sitting at his table. Del is startled mid-meal, his solitude suddenly broken. His sister Marina has crashed his dinner, looking guilty but undeterred. She waves off her own friends, declaring tonight is for family only. She plops down across from him, ready for a serious sibling talk. Del glumly reflects on how much everyone seems to dislike him, but Marina reassures him that it's not hatred he's inspiring. She reveals the nickname he's earned around campus, the Solitary Knight. Apparently he's seen as an enigmatic, flawless show-off, which Del finds horrifying. He's left genuinely stumped, asking how a person is even supposed to make friends. Marina bursts out laughing, finding his genuine question absolutely hilarious. She offers a pro tip. Sharing important secrets is the fastest way to get close. But Del counters, wondering if that would just get him hated for what he's hiding. His sister pauses mid-snack, a thoughtful but mischievous look on her face. Her expression turns sly as she zeroes in on his words, asking what secret he has. Del stammers, trying to backtrack, but Marina is already offering to guess. He shouts her name in pure exasperation, trying to shut down this line of questioning. She lands on the most logical conclusion. He's secretly in love with his big sister. Utterly defeated, Del just gets up and leaves as she insists it was only a joke. But she ends on a serious note, promising to accept him no matter what his secret is. He turns back with a small smile, seemingly accepting her words. But his escape is halted when Marina spots his suspiciously large dinner tray. He makes a clumsy excuse about provisions before bolting from the dining hall. Marina is left with her thoughts, her big sister's senses tingling with suspicion. She remembers a time she tried to secretly raise 16 hungry cats, a memory that ended with her collapsing from hunger. A classic rookie mistake. As Del walks through the woods, he reflects on his sister's unwavering kindness. She's been reaching out to him ever since he joined her family as a child. He wants to confess his secret, to prove himself worthy of their trust. But he's terrified that the truth will make him lose his family all over again. His heavy thoughts follow him down the familiar stone steps to the grotto. He even considers asking the grumpy cat fairy for some life advice. But his cheerful return is shattered by a scene of absolute horror. His hidden sanctuary has been turned into a battlefield of ruin and despair. Del can only stare, his mind struggling to process the devastation. A sinister voice cuts through the silence, belonging to a cloaked figure. It's the hunter from the bell tower, his corrupted blade glowing with malice. Del is frozen in the doorway, caught in the intruder's menacing gaze. The hunter mockingly warns him about the dangers of being out after dark. He claims he's just disciplining a pet, revealing a beaten and broken Agni. The hunter feigns innocence, asking if Del sees anything out of place. Del's voice is low and dangerous, demanding to know if this was his doing. The intruder decides he can't have any witnesses to his handiwork. He proudly takes credit, revealing a grudge against the pet that burned his puppets. And it seems he's found the perfect place to restock, unleashing his miasma stakes. The corrupted projectiles hurtle toward Del, who stands silhouetted in the doorway. Our boy can only watch as the deadly attack closes in on him. The stakes slam into the ground, shattering the darkness and sending his lantern flying. But the hunter is left confused, searching for his target in the miasma. His shock turns to rage as he realizes the impossible. The boy can see him. With a surge of resolve, Del draws his sword, pushing back the encroaching darkness. He lunges forward, driving the cloaked hunter back in a blur of righteous fury. The intruder lies defeated on the ground, Del standing over him, blade at the ready. But his focus immediately shifts from the battle, turning to a more pressing concern. He rushes to Agni's side, calling out in worry for his fallen companion. Of course, the tiny lord is more concerned that Del is late with its dinner offering. A wave of pure relief washes over Del, a genuine smile breaking through his worry. He asks about their attacker, but Agni just dismisses the man as an annoying pest. But their reunion is cut short as a familiar figure appears in the grotto's entrance. Del whips around in shock, utterly busted by his ever-suspicious older sister, Marina. Marina admits she followed him, worried about him sneaking out at night. Her eyes fall on the corrupted stake, finally sensing the danger in the air. Del panics, trying to get her to leave as the hunter looms behind him. Agni roars a warning. Their attacker is far from defeated. The hunter rises, cloaked in miasma, and prepares another devastating attack. But Marina stands her ground, demanding to know who this intruder is. The hunter unleashes his stake, aiming directly for the unsuspecting girl. Del can only scream her name, his face a mask of pure horror. But the attack is intercepted by a mysterious girl in a witch's hat. Del stares in disbelief as the newcomer stands between them and the hunter. The hunter's monstrous face twists into a sneer as he gives a single command. He orders his newest puppet to kill the boy standing before her. To Del's horror, Marina lunges at him, her sword aimed to kill. She moves with unnatural speed, shrouded in the puppeteer's dark energy. Her face is a mask of shadow, her body now a vessel for the miasma. Her eyes are cold and empty, completely devoid of the sister he knows. Del desperately parries her strikes, pleading for her to snap out of it. The hunter gloats. Once his stake hits, the victim becomes his plaything. Trapped on the defensive, Del struggles to find a way out of this nightmare. His face is a mask of anguish. He can't bring himself to hurt his sister. He's pushed back, his defense crumbling under his sister's relentless assault. Del's face is a mask of anguish. He can't bring himself to fight back seriously. The corrupted Marina raises her sword for a final decisive blow. But for a moment, she breaks through the control, urging Del to run. He can only watch in horror as his sister fights a war within herself. But a tiny furry foot plants itself firmly on the ground in defiance. Agni leaps onto Del's shoulder, tired of watching this pathetic display. The tiny lord unleashes its flame purification roar directly at Marina. The puppeteer can only stare in utter disbelief at this sudden turn of events. Del screams in terror as his sister is engulfed by the purifying inferno. Agni calmly explains it only purified the miasma, leaving his sister unharmed. Del demands to know what just happened, his mind reeling from the shock. His eyes reflect the dying embers, his terror slowly turning to understanding. He holds his unconscious sister, staring down at the tiny lord who saved her. But the hunter's maniacal laughter cuts through the silence, mocking Agni's sacrifice. Del's gaze falls on Agni's fading form as the creature offers a faint apology. The tiny lord accepts the blame for bringing this disaster to their sanctuary. But Del cuts it off, shouting that apologies are useless now. Agni admits its life force is spent, telling Del to run while he still can. The hunter looms over them, his arm twisting into a blade of pure miasma. But with its last ounce of strength, Agni offers a desperate solution, a soul contract. Del listens intently, the weight of the decision heavy on his shoulders. Agni warns him of the risks. Their souls will merge, and his could be destroyed. But Del only has one question. Will this power let them destroy that bastard? The tiny lord's grin is all the answer he needs. It's a resounding yes. With the deal struck, the two prepare to forge an unlikely and very flammable alliance. Agni instructs Del to use his unique vision to see its true form and soul. As Del focuses, his eyes fill with the reflection of Agni's primordial flame. The contract requires him to see past the surface into the very core of the Fire Lord. He's pulled into a pitch-black void, a voice beckoning him from the depths of the darkness. In the void, Del sees the true face of the Fire Lord, a primal, terrifying beast. But Del offers not fear, but a promise, to bring Agni to the beautiful world it desires. Their souls reach for one another, a pact forged in desperation and fire. The contract is sealed, a vortex of light pulling their two worlds into one. Back in the grotto, Del stands reborn, a silhouette against a raging inferno. The hunter can only stammer in disbelief, his face melting in the sheer heat. Our boy is now wreathed in flame, the spirit of the Fire Lord roaring above him. His eyes glow with a dangerous new power, a smirk playing on his lips. He declares that the warm-up is officially over. Looks like someone's about to have a very bad day. The hunter now faces the combined might of the boy and the Lord of Fire. Del feels the raw power of the Fire Lord coursing through his very veins. The hunter panics, recognizing the sacred flame he thought he'd extinguished. A newfound resolve hardens Del's expression as embers dance around him. His gaze falls on his unconscious sister, his one reason for fighting. He promises Marina this will be over quickly, his voice laced with fury. But the hunter refuses to be intimidated, roaring in defiance. He unleashes a swarm of miasma creatures, sending them toward the boy. Still new to this, Del asks Agni for a quick tutorial on his new fire powers. Agni's advice is simple. Just tell things to burn. So much for a user manual. With no time to practice, Del faces the incoming wave of shadowy monsters. The hunter scoffs, convinced it's all a bluff, until his minions are instantly vaporized. But Del is struggling, the raw power of the flame threatening to overwhelm him. He quickly realizes that controlling this inferno is much harder than it looks. The hunter can only stare in terror as Del towers over him, wreathed in fire. He panics, realizing the boy is somehow wielding the Lord's sacred flame. But his fear quickly twists into a manic, unhinged grin. If he's going down, it seems he's decided to go down fighting. Del braces himself, his expression hardening for the real battle to begin. Agni warns him that this power uses his own life force as fuel. The good news, it'll only knock him out. The bad news, the hunter will then kill him. The hunter, Dees, erupts in a torrent of corrupted energy. He roars that he's done holding back, his face a mask of pure insanity. He dives from above, a meteor of miasma aimed straight at Del. Del realizes he can't afford to be conservative with this new power. He reaches out, attempting to shape the wild inferno into a weapon. A massive blade of pure fire slices through the air to meet the attack. The hunter's manic grin shatters as he sees the impossible counter. He mocks Del for blinding himself, apparently a fan of stating the obvious. But the miasma lashes out, catching Del off guard in the chaos. Del flips backward, narrowly dodging a crushing blow from the puppeteer. With the flames gone, Del grips his sword, relying on his own strength. The hunter mocks his inexperience, knowing it takes time to summon the fire. Del realizes with dawning horror that this man is both cunning and incredibly strong. Dees presses his advantage, determined not to give him a single moment to breathe. Forced on the defensive, Del can only parry, his face a mask of grim determination. The hunter taunts him, asking where his little circus act has gone. Del deflects another blow, his focus entirely on surviving the relentless assault. The hunter's corrupted blade clashes with steel, pushing Del back step by step. Dees reveals his strategy. Without the flame, his miasma armor is untouchable. And it seems Del's sword agrees, as cracks begin to spiderweb across the blade. Dees brings his corrupted blade down, overwhelming Del with sheer force. Del is sent sliding back, his sword barely holding together against the assault. Agni roars a warning, and Del's eyes widen as he sees the state of his weapon. The miasma is actively corroding the steel, eating away at his only defense. The hunter just laughs, confirming that Del has finally caught on. But he sneers that this realization won't change the outcome of this fight. Agni insists the flame is their only hope, but Del argues it's as unruly as the Lord himself. He describes the power as a raging inferno that simply slips through his fingers. With no time to think, Del is forced to block another devastating blow from the hunter. But Agni offers a crucial piece of advice. Don't grasp the flame. Give it form. Del focuses, trying to envision the flame's true intended form. The hunter scoffs, assuming the boy is just saying his final prayers. But Del isn't praying. He's reforging his blade in the sacred fire. Dees lunges forward, aiming to end this fight with a single, decisive kick. He surrounds Del with blades of miasma, leaving him no room to escape. With Agni's roar in his mind, Del prepares to unleash his final attack. The hunter is suddenly lost in a memory of a past brutal victory. He cackles, remembering how he should have finished his last opponent sooner. His eyes gleam with malice, certain this fight will end the same way. But his triumphant grin falters as he realizes something is terribly wrong. The hunter is engulfed in the inferno, his confident sneer melting into raw terror. Del's newly forged blade of fire effortlessly incinerates the miasma stakes. He holds the sword aloft, a pillar of sacred flame now perfectly under his control. With a smirk, Del declares he has finally grasped the true nature of the Lord's flame. Dees can only stare, his face a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. He screams in defiance, refusing to be beaten by a hastily learned trick. The puppeteer unleashes a massive wave of miasma, a final desperate gambit. But the sacred fire carves through the darkness as if it were nothing. Del looks almost bored, stating he's seen enough of this particular circus act. The hunter is left speechless, stunned by the swift and absolute counter. Del roars, declaring that he's the one who will decide their fate. The hunter's pleas for mercy are lost in the all-consuming inferno. He unleashes the blade of heavenly fire, a final act of purification. In his last moments, the hunter dreams of becoming an underworld king. As the embers fade into the night sky, Del stands alone, the battle won. The power recedes, leaving Del exhausted and Agni back in its tiny form. He takes a quiet moment to process the night's chaotic events. The commotion has woken the other, far more peaceful residents of the grotto. Agni explains the purified miasma has become a feast of life essence for the fairies. But Del's relief is shattered by a sudden horrifying realization. Marina, He looks down at his sister, who is thankfully just knocked out cold. Del breathes a sigh of relief, just glad that Marina is finally safe. But Agni suddenly cries out, sensing something is still terribly wrong. The tiny lord urges Del to use his unique vision to look closer at Marina's soul. He does, and realizes with horror that the miasma was never fully purified. The scene cuts to a quiet room in the academy late into the night. Inside, a woman with glasses carefully tends to Del's many cuts and bruises. He flinches as she cleans his wounds, clearly not enjoying the process. She asks with a skeptical look if all this was really from a simple sibling quarrel. Del can only offer a weak, unconvincing laugh, trying to brush it all off. The woman leans in, telling Del to keep this whole mess a secret. With his wounds finally treated, she declares her work is done for the night. She agrees to let it slide this time, adding that Marina needs to rest here. His sister sleeps soundly, unaware of the danger she was just in. Del bows in deep gratitude, earning an amused smile from the doctor. She leaves them to their privacy, closing the door with a quiet click. The moment she's gone, Del rushes to Marina's side, calling for Agni. He desperately asks for an update, and Agni confirms a trace of miasma remains. Del immediately decides to try again, because mostly purified isn't a great look. Following Agni's lead, he summons the sacred flame into the palm of his hand. He places his hand over her heart, channeling the sacred flame. But the purifying fire sputters, unable to take hold. Del demands to know why, his voice filled with panic. Agni reveals the miasma has burrowed deep into her very soul. Forcing the purification now could shatter her spirit completely. The good news is the corruption is small and won't kill her instantly. The bad news? It will slowly consume her life force until nothing is left. Del clenches his fists, blaming himself for dragging his sister into this mess. Agni tries to calm him down, but the weight of his failure is crushing. The tiny lord then reveals its own problem. Its true form is in tatters. Agni explains its purification ability is directly tied to its own power. To recover, it needs a massive amount of life essence to fuel its return. Del realizes with dawning hope that a fully powered Agni can save Marina. He looks down at his sister, a clear path to her recovery now visible. But for now, he can only sit in silence, the weight of his failure heavy on his shoulders. He reflects that they aren't blood-related, and she only acts like a big sister because she's 3 months older. A flashback takes us to the day he was adopted into her family at 6 years old. A young Marina had reached out to him with a bright, welcoming smile. But the young Del could only look away, already withdrawn and untrusting. He remembers that he couldn't trust anyone, having just learned he was a heretic. He remembers being abandoned by his real parents for the very gift he now possesses. The trauma caused him to withdraw, rejecting anyone who tried to get close. But a young, fearless Marina refused to be pushed away, literally crashing into his life. She was the only one who never gave up, always insisting she was his big sister. She dragged him on countless adventures, whether he liked it or not. He admits to himself that she was always there for him. Annoyingly so. He looks over at his sister sleeping soundly, completely unaware of her fate. Agni climbs onto his shoulder, a silent promise of support from the tiny lord. Del smiles, realizing Marina is more family to him than anyone he's ever known. With newfound resolve, he declares his mission to save her and master this sacred flame. He bows his head, humbly asking the tiny lord to lend him its strength. But Agni scoffs, reminding him their soul contract makes them one. No need for formalities. Del looks up with a grateful smile, a true partnership finally forged in fire. He decides to keep this from Marina for now, to spare her the anxiety. But he makes a vow. Once she's safe, he'll confess everything he's hidden. He gently tucks her in, his resolve hardening with every passing moment. He promises his sleeping sister that he'll fix this, asking her to just wait. With his mission clear, Del leaves the room to begin his new journey. Marina is left to rest, seemingly lost in a peaceful, untroubled sleep. But as the door closes, her eyes open. Looks like she wasn't so unconscious after all. She wonders how long he'll make her wait, wishing her brother good night. Elsewhere in a chamber of shadow, a new player steps into the light. A dark, armored figure stands as the master of this corrupted domain. He looms over a familiar cloaked woman who kneels in his presence. It's the thread user from the shrine reporting to her mysterious guide. She confirms that the threads connecting to Dees have been severed. He's gone. Her master grabs her, reminding her of the mission's 2 simple objectives. She tries to argue they at least completed half the job, but he's not impressed. His grip tightens, his patience clearly worn thin by her excuses. A miasma creature forms around him as he asks who gave her permission to fail. She desperately tries to explain, vowing to hunt the Fire Lord herself. but her master simply casts her aside, declaring his own plans are in motion. He reveals the academy holds the key to their ultimate wish. With the shrine destroyed, he declares it's time for his group, Dark Moon, to act. Strange glowing eyes watch from the very fabric of his corrupted cloak. His helmet retracts, revealing a monstrous, draconic face beneath the armor. He clutches his head in agony, apparently suffering from a world-ending migraine. His followers can only bow, oblivious to their master's internal struggle. Their true goal is revealed, to herald the return of the great underworld king. The scene cuts to the sunlit spires of the academy, a jarringly peaceful sight. Del walks through the academy, pondering where to find the massive life essence Agni needs. Agni explains that even the entire island's life force wouldn't be enough to restore its power. Their search is interrupted by the arrival of a revered figure known as the Holy Woman. But her expression is cold, her gaze fixed on something she finds out of place. Del can only stare, completely surprised by her sudden and intense presence. In a vision, a divine voice warns this woman, Lucia, of a calamity heading for the academy.
She is given a single, chilling command from the heavens to eliminate a certain person.
Without a moment's hesitation, Lucia accepts her sacred and deadly mission. She vows to follow the guidance of the light, her eyes filled with a chilling resolve. With her target now clear, the Holy Woman begins her hunt on the academy grounds. The Holy Woman stands with an unreadable expression, her presence commanding attention. Her gaze is cold and unwavering, fixed on her divine purpose. Del's eyes widen as he takes in the scene unfolding before him. A crowd of students has gathered, whispering in awe about the legendary figure. But Agni is less impressed, demanding a better view from its perch on Del's head. Before Del can react, Marina shoves him forward right into the spotlight. Our boy can only mutter about how this has quickly gotten out of hand. Marina leans in, trying to bring up the chaos from the previous night. Del panics, desperately trying to shut her down before she reveals anything. But she just offers a dramatic apology, leaving Del utterly bewildered by her antics. She feigns total amnesia, leaving Del completely baffled by her performance. She blames her memory loss on their spar, offering a flimsy apology. His worry cuts through her act as he demands to know if she feels any lingering effects. His sudden intensity catches her completely off guard, a blush creeping onto her cheeks. He leans in close, his protective brother mode dialed up to 11, but their moment is abruptly shattered by a teacher shoving them aside. The man grovels before the Holy Woman, introducing himself as a devoted follower. Lucia calmly explains that a divine oracle has brought her to their academy. Her words send a ripple of awe through the stunned crowd of students. Agni senses a massive amount of life essence, a potential solution to their problem. Del's view is obscured as the Holy Woman stands amidst the crowd. Her piercing gaze cuts through the students, searching for her divine target. Del panics, trying to hide Agni with some very unconvincing morning exercises. The teacher tries to block her path, but his authority means nothing to her. She dismisses him entirely, saying any complaints can be taken up with heaven. The students' whispers turn to the real reason for her visit, a heretic hunt. The crowd buzzes with morbid excitement, hoping for a public execution. Marina looks over at her brother, sensing his sudden distress. Del's anger boils over as he questions why being different is a sin. His sister can only watch, her face a mask of quiet, worried understanding. As Marina's friends swarm her, Del tries to make a quiet escape. But the same thoughtful girl from before watches him go with a knowing look. Del tells Agni their priority has changed. Avoid the Holy Woman at all costs. But it's too late. Lucia has already sensed his presence, confirming her divine target is here. Del feels a chill as her gaze sweeps through the crowd, a hunter zeroing in on her prey. The scene cuts to a classroom, a brief respite from the tension outside. A professor lectures on the war from 300 years ago, when the underworld king was defeated. He explains the king was vanquished on this very island by the light of a god, and by the power of a holy woman, a detail that makes Marina's friends yawn dramatically. Del looks thoroughly unimpressed, while Agni has already succumbed to a history-induced coma. The students whisper among themselves, wondering why they're getting a history lesson. He dramatically reveals the church has finally recognized her reincarnation after 300 years. A woman who now stands among them, the great Lucia Filius, and speak of the devil, she humbly insists it's far too great an honor. The professor immediately starts groveling, hoping for a promotion from the new celebrity. Del panics, desperately trying to hide Agni's very obvious pause under his book. But her expression hardens. She can feel the presence of her target. She stalks down the aisle as Del frantically tries to keep his companion hidden. Agni, however, is deeply offended, fuming that a god should have to hide. Her gaze snaps directly toward them, her hunt seemingly at its end. But her gaze cuts through the classroom, landing directly on Dell. The professor cries out in shock as Lucia points toward a shadowy presence. Another student asks what's happening, but the holy woman ignores him completely. But Dell's old tormentor eagerly volunteers, asking if she's on a heretic hunt. Lucia turns to him, her expression calm and unreadable. She offers a sweet smile, telling the boy to meet her in private later. The student wastes no time, pointing a finger and outing Dell as the heretic. The entire class turns to stare, their shock and curiosity palpable. Dell can only lower his head, the weight of the accusation falling on him. His secret is out, and there's nowhere left for him to run. The holy woman's gaze remains cold, her judgment already passed. Dell keeps his head low, the weight of every stare pressing down on him. He looks up in a panic, his mind racing for an escape that isn't there. But a surprising voice cuts through the silence, defending him against the claim. His tormentor eagerly lists every strange thing Dell has ever done. You know, like being good at sword fighting. Lucia turns away, completely uninterested in the boy's desperate tattling. She walks past the accuser, her true target now directly in her path. Her eyes glow with a divine light, her sacred mission finally reaching its climax. But her gaze isn't on Dell. It's on the dark miasma rising from his accuser. With a single thought, she confirms she has found the true source of the calamity. The boy eagerly agrees, ready to pile on the accusations against Dell. But Lucia cuts him off with a sly smile, asking for a moment of silence. Her sudden command leaves the tattletale completely speechless. In a flash, she summons a blade of pure light, slicing through the miasma. Dell and Agni can only stare, completely blindsided by this development. The tormentor falls back in his seat as the holy light narrowly misses him. She smiles sweetly, claiming she just tidied up some annoying miasma. The other students erupt in awe, calling her power a miracle from the heavens. Dell is stunned, realizing that for once, everyone can see the holy light. Agni confirms it's the power of a god, a life essence so strong it's become visible. Lucia calls for the attention of the entire classroom, her voice cutting through the chatter. She confirms the rumors. She has indeed come searching for a heretic. Dell listens in silence, the weight of her words falling heavily on him, but she reveals a shocking twist. Her divine mission is to protect them. Her expression is anything but reassuring, leaving her true motives a mystery. The students whisper in confusion, debating church doctrine like seasoned theologians. Dell's mind races, wondering if he's her target and what protection really means. The professor tries to end the class, but Lucia is clearly not finished. She can still feel a powerful life essence, a burning heat on her skin. She's certain now. The heretic from the oracle is in this very room. With a disarmingly sweet smile, Lucia announces she's taken a special interest in the academy. She asks to observe the next class, her request sending a wave of shock through the students. The professor, meanwhile, is practically giddy, seeing this as a golden ticket for his career. Dell looks back at the excited crowd, the only one who understands the danger she represents. He knows this is an unforeseen complication, and a potentially fatal one at that. The scene shifts to the training grounds, where the students are called to begin sword practice. An instructor rallies the troops, reminding them that the holy woman herself is observing today. Dell can only look on, trapped in a situation that's getting more dangerous by the second. Lucia offers a serene wave, wishing them well in their training, a truly ironic sentiment. The other boys are completely smitten, while Dell just looks like he wants to be anywhere else. The male students are already fantasizing about becoming her personal knight. The girls, however, are far less impressed by this sudden display of chivalry. One student interrupts the instructor, proposing a tournament to impress their guest. The professor from earlier eagerly agrees, seeing another chance to suck up. The entire class erupts in a frenzy, each student desperate to be the first to fight. Marina's friends get caught up in the excitement, ready to show off their skills. But the thoughtful girl from before isn't interested, saying she'll pass on the tournament. She glances over with a sly smile, her words clearly aimed at someone else. She teases Dell, suggesting he should make a grand, heroic declaration of his own. But she quickly plays it off, leaving Dell to wonder what that was all about. Dell decides that until he knows what protection means, he's staying out of it. He resolves to keep his head down and avoid the holy woman's gaze. But Lucia's serene smile suggests she already knows more than she's letting on. The tournament begins, a flurry of steel and desperate ambition. Students clash in the courtyard, each hoping to catch the holy woman's eye. The professor eagerly asks for her opinion, and she singles out one student. His name is Grand Danamon, a second year with a famous and apparently very loud bloodline. His opponent charges forward, but Danamon seems completely unfazed. The other student prepares a final all-out attack, vowing never to surrender. But Danemon just sneers, calling his opponent a fool for even trying. Danemon slams his sword into the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. He uses the cheap trick to blind his opponent with a face full of sand. A swift, brutal kick sends the disoriented student sprawling to the ground. Danemon celebrates his 5th consecutive win as the crowd murmurs in disapproval. He proudly declares that winning dirty is his personal brand of chivalry. What a guy! Del watches from the sidelines, completely unimpressed by the display. The holy woman Lucia observes the match with a calm, unreadable expression. She turns to Marina's friends, asking if Danemon is the strongest in the class. One of the girls hesitates before another chimes in, suggesting Del is stronger. Her friend enthusiastically agrees, praising Del's almost supernatural instincts in a fight. Lucia's interest is piqued. She declares she'd like to see this person for herself. The girl who spoke up immediately panics, realizing she's put Del in the spotlight. But it's too late. Danemon has overheard the entire conversation, and he is not happy. He turns to the crowd, sneering about the coward who's too afraid to fight. Marina's friends can only watch in horror, realizing they've just thrown Del to the wolves. Danemon makes it official, pointing his sword and calling out Del Marshall by name. Del stands with his eyes closed, looking thoroughly unimpressed by the challenge. He sighs, completely fed up with being the center of everyone's attention. Danemon vows to wipe that smug, indifferent look right off our boy's face. But Del just raises a hand and concedes on the spot. Well, that was anticlimactic. Danemon continues his taunts, calling Del a coward from a house of frauds. He claims Del's family name was built on lies and fabricated victories. But that last insult strikes a nerve, and Del's calm facade shatters. In a flash, Del has him by the wrist, his grip like iron. The sudden shift in tone even catches the holy woman's attention. Del reminds him that insulting another's family is a knight's greatest taboo. Danemon tries to laugh it off, claiming he was just speaking the truth. The thoughtful girl tries to pull him back, urging him not to take the bait. But Del explains that his father gave him a home and a name. To ignore this insult would mean he's unworthy of the sword he carries. With his family's honor on the line, Del steps forward to accept the duel. The quiet, withdrawn student is gone, replaced by a knight with fire in his eyes. Danemon sneers, finally getting the one-on-one fight he's been itching for. The holy woman herself agrees to officiate, giving the signal to begin the match. Danemon rants about Del's arrogant attitude, clearly projecting his own insecurities. Del calmly admits he's aware of how his quiet nature can be misunderstood. But he promises that this time, there will be no misunderstanding his intent to win. Lucia's gaze is sharp as she prepares to start the duel. The moment she gives the word, Del explodes into action with a ferocious grin. Danemon's smug confidence shatters as their blades meet with a resounding crash. Danemon presses his attack, forcing Del onto the defensive with a powerful overhead strike. The professor explains Danemon's style, a storm of attacks meant to overwhelm his opponent. Danemon mocks him, asking where all that earlier confidence has gone. His friends can only watch in horror as Danemon continues his relentless taunts. He sneers that Del is all hype, but our boy calmly offers an excuse about his sword. Danemon roars in fury, accusing him of making pathetic excuses for his poor performance. But Del just smiles, calmly denying that he's making an excuse at all. In a blur of motion, he ducks under the attack and slams his pommel into Danemon's shoulder. The blow sends a jolt of pain through Danemon, his face a mask of pure shock. With the tables turned, Del regains his footing, a confident smirk on his face. With his sword at Danemon's throat, Del ends the duel with a very unconventional flourish. Marina's friends erupt in cheers, celebrating Del's decisive and stylish victory. The professor quickly tries to save face, claiming he predicted this outcome all along. Sure you did, buddy. But Danemon refuses to accept the loss, roaring that the match is completely invalid. He argues that a blade to the neck means nothing on a real battlefield. Del tries to remind him this is just a spar, but Danemon brings up his father again. The insult lands, and Del's expression darkens as his opponent continues his taunts. With a cold, unwavering gaze, Del agrees to continue the fight on Danemon's terms. The girl who cheered for him now watches with concern, realizing he's been pushed too far. Danemon demands the match restart, completely unaware of the fury he's just unleashed. Danemon slams his sword into the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. He roars that the real match starts now, blinding Del with his cheap trick. Del winces, his vision completely obscured by the sudden attack. Danemon pulls a hidden dagger, ready to teach Del a lesson in real combat. But Del moves on pure instinct, proving that sand in the eyes is a rookie move. Danemon can only stare in disbelief as his surefire victory evaporates. He's left completely defenseless, a sword now pointed directly at his face. The cold steel stops just inches from his eye, a silent, deadly threat. Del calmly explains a core tenet of the martial family sword style. They are trained to fight on, even when their eyes are stolen from them. Danemon lies on the ground, utterly defeated, and unable to process his loss. Del stands victorious as the entire courtyard stares at the humiliated bully. The instructor's voice rings out, officially declaring Del Marshall the winner. The crowd whispers, mocking Danemon for losing so shamefully after using dirty tricks. But his humiliation twists into something darker, as a familiar miasma rises around him. His mind flashes back to a memory of his father's crushing disappointment. He remembers being told to win by any means necessary, even if it meant murder. Those twisted words become his mantra, the only thing driving him forward. But Lucia recognizes the corruption instantly, shouting a desperate warning about the miasma. Consumed by the darkness, Danemon lunges forward, his mind completely gone. The thoughtful girl screams in terror, desperately warning Del to dodge the attack. Del whips around, his eyes wide with shock as he senses the incoming danger. But a familiar flicker of flame reflects in his eye. He's not defenseless anymore. He's engulfed in a torrent of fire, meeting the corrupted attack head-on. The sacred flame erupts from his blade, stopping the possessed Danemon in his tracks. The holy woman can only stare, her calm facade finally breaking in surprise. Del glances back, realizing he's just revealed his secret to the one person he can't afford to. His flaming sword slices through the air, leaving a trail of embers on the stone ground. The crowd erupts, realizing he just cut through an iron sword like it was nothing. The girl who started this mess can only apologize, clearly worried she's pushed him too far. Del internally panics, blaming Agni for revealing the sacred flame to the entire class. He knows the other students might just see sparks, but he can't fool the holy woman. The timing is a disaster. Being outed as a heretic now is a death sentence. But Lucia approaches with a bright smile, declaring it was an excellent match. She takes his hands, praising the final, impossible strike that cut through solid iron. With a look of pure admiration, she asks to hear his magnificent name once more. Del can only stare, wondering if she's truly oblivious or just playing a dangerous game. She then turns to Danemon, offering some very hollow words of encouragement. Lucia lectures him, explaining his resentment is a beacon for the miasma. She ends with a cryptic promise. He won't be needing any purification from now on. But her praise quickly turns into a very hands-on physical inspection. Del can only stammer in protest as she continues her thorough examination. The crowd is scandalized, with one girl shouting that it's far too indecent. Agni panics, realizing the holy woman is probing for its presence inside Del. Del leaps back in a fluster, but Lucia just watches him with an amused smile. She compliments his well-trained body, her intentions becoming increasingly unclear. Her internal analysis confirms it. His form is flawless, with no openings. She decides that as the victor of her tournament, he deserves a proper reward. Del frantically tries to refuse, but she's already decided to fulfill his hopes. With a smile, she appoints him as her personal attendant knight. Well, that escalated quickly. Del and the other students are left completely speechless by her sudden declaration. And so begins his new life, giving the holy woman a grand tour of the academy. He awkwardly shows her the dining hall, trying to act as normal as possible. Their tour takes them to a balcony with a stunning view of the island. Lucia seems to be enjoying herself, while Del just looks like he's counting the seconds. But their peaceful tour is cut short as the balcony suddenly gives way beneath them. Without a second thought, Del grabs her hand, pulling her back from the edge. Lucia just smiles, praising him for already fulfilling his duty as her protector. Del can only stammer, completely flustered by her calm, almost calculated reaction. He's left wondering how his life went from hiding secrets to this in a single afternoon. Marina's friend urges him to accept, calling it an unbelievable honor. But Del politely declines, explaining he has plans to join his father's knighthood. The crowd is left completely stunned by his refusal of a divine offer. But Lucia leans in, asking if her begging isn't enough to sway his decision. Del is completely flustered, caught in a trap he can't talk his way out of. She then laughs it off, claiming her little joke went a bit too far. Our boy is left utterly confused by her sudden change in demeanor. She clarifies the position is only for a day, basically just a campus tour guide. Relieved, Del agrees, saying he'd be happy to show her around the academy. She takes his hand, declaring that for today he is her knight, whether he likes it or not. Lucia asks if he's not going to search for the heretic she's supposed to protect. She reveals she has another, more pressing mission from a higher power. Del asks what it is, and she leans in, swearing him to absolute secrecy. She whispers that the legendary Great Seal of Light is hidden in the academy. Del is stunned, still trying to process her strange and conflicting priorities. His mind races, trying to understand the implications of her words. But their secret conversation is violently interrupted by an unseen force. A massive knight yanks him back, demanding he unhand the holy woman. Lucia is cut off mid-sentence, clearly annoyed by the sudden interruption. The armored guard now stands between them, having overheard everything. The knight explains he was just following the church's orders to check on the seal. Lucia apologizes for her guard's enthusiasm, which is one word for it. Del plays it cool, admitting the guard was right to be protective of the holy woman. But Lucia watches him with a knowing gaze, her curiosity clearly piqued. As they walk, she brings up the duel, asking about the reason for his exceptional skill. He tries to downplay it, but she seems to understand something deeper is at play. She sees past his excuses, sensing a desperate determination fueling his every move. Her words hit their mark, and Del hesitates before revealing a painful truth. He confesses he was abandoned by his real parents for a secret he can't name. But a kind traveling knight took him in, raising him as his own son. He explains his one desire is to repay that debt by becoming a great knight. But he admits the truth is much darker. He's just terrified of being abandoned again. He calls his own motivations cowardly, but Lucia suddenly says she's the same. Del is stunned as she reveals she was also an abandoned child for a certain reason. He can't believe it. The revered holy woman shares his painful past. She recounts a life on the streets, fighting thugs and stealing just to survive. She asks with a wink if her criminal record makes her unfit for the job. Del is left completely speechless, admitting he's never heard this story before. Lucia explains her past is a well-kept secret to protect her holy image. It was the God of Light, she says, who finally saved her from that life. She recalls being cornered, with no way out but to end her own life. But in her darkest moment, a divine light descended and offered her salvation. She even reenacts her old defiance, a comical rage against the god who would save her. Now she's learning to wield that power with the same desperation that drives Del. Del can't only stand in stunned silence, his perception of the holy woman shattered. Lucia just offers a small smile, her point clearly made. Their tour continues, stopping before a painting of a knighting ceremony. She explains this is the accolade, the moment a squire becomes a true knight. And since she's already appointed him, she decides to drag him off to the next location. She officially names him her Light Knight, for the rest of the day, at least. Del humbly accepts the honor, agreeing to be her knight for just one day. Lucia performs the mock ceremony, tapping his shoulder with the flat of her blade. But Del is flustered, feeling a sacred ritual shouldn't be treated so lightly. His protest is cut short as her armored guard suddenly appears beside them. The guard's hand glows with a sinister energy, and Del realizes this is no game. Without warning, the massive knight brings his jagged blade down upon them. But the attack is intercepted, the guard's sword shattering against an unseen defense. The thoughtful girl from before stands guard. Apparently she's more than just a background character. But Lucia shoves Del back, sensing a danger she hadn't even noticed until now. The armored guard is consumed by miasma, his form twisting into something monstrous. The guard's armor shatters, revealing the grotesque miasma creature within. Del panics, realizing this is way above the pay grade for a one-day night. But the girl who saved them stumbles, a shard of the attack lodged in her hair. Her friends rush to her side, revealing she's none other than Del's sister, Marina. They tease her about being worried for Del, but she's just being an overprotective sister. Her playful anger fades, replaced by a sudden, heavy sigh. She clutches her chest, a deep, unsettling feeling washing over her. Her only thought is for her brother's safety in the face of this new threat. The miasma creature looms over them, a hulking monstrosity of pure corruption. Even Lucia is stunned, as Del questions what kind of monster they're truly facing. The guard cries out a final warning, urging the holy woman to escape the ambush. Lucia realizes with horror that her own guards are being consumed by the miasma. Without a second thought, Del charges forward, determined to help. But Lucia holds him back, telling him to stay out of her way. She summons a blade of light, declaring her duty is to protect everyone. She believes it's her sacred mission to defend all who are bathed in divine light. Del can only stare, completely baffled by her sudden declaration. Surrounded by a powerful aura, she insists she doesn't need his help. She unleashes a storm of holy blades, ready to face the threat alone. With a sad smile, she admits she's been used to fighting by herself for a long time. But Del can only watch, his expression unreadable as she prepares to fight alone. The miasma creature lunges forward, its grotesque smile fixed on the holy woman. Its mouth warps into a cannon, preparing to unleash a blast of pure corruption. But its attack is cut short by a wave of incredible destructive power. Lucia is completely unfazed. Admitting a hostage is only a minor inconvenience. She asks if it hasn't perhaps underestimated the power of the Holy Woman. She unleashes her divine judgment, a storm of light that engulfs the monster. The holy light tears the miasma away, freeing the guard from its corrupting hold. The guard is thrown to safety as the last of the corruption is vaporized. With a sigh of relief, she notes that appearances can be deceiving. Guess she didn't need a knight after all. Del can only stare. The attack was too fast for his eyes to even follow. He realizes this is the true, overwhelming power of the Holy Woman. But elsewhere, in a dark corridor, another player makes their move. This masked intruder reveals the attack was just a diversion to keep Lucia busy. A monstrous face grins, eager to get to the real prize. Their target is a massive, sealed door deep within the academy. But as they reach out, their hand is repelled by a powerful, holy barrier. The intruder seems to have expected this, ready to shatter the accursed seal. They pull out a strange, ornate object, a key forged from darkness. The talisman of darkness is unleashed, its corrupting power aimed at the holy gate. The holy light fades, leaving a trail of purified energy in its wake. But Lucia realizes her other guard is missing. The diversion was a success. She and Del stand over the remains of the corrupted knight, the danger seemingly past. But Del's eyes widen in sudden alarm, sensing a new threat. Lucia turns to him for answers, asking if he knows of any other dangers. He can only shout a desperate warning as a shadow looms over them. A massive, grotesque foot of miasma slams down where they just stood. Lucia watches in disbelief as the shattered fragments begin to reassemble. The creature reforms, taunting her as Del wonders when the evil goo learned to talk. It gloats that her light is no match for its power, ready to begin the real fight. Lucia declares she'll test the monster's claim with the full force of her power. The miasma splits into countless smaller creatures, each one a piece of the whole. She carves through the horde, confident her divine power can sever any amount of miasma. But her confidence is shattered as the creature seems completely unfazed. The scattered pieces reform into a single hulking monstrosity of pure corruption. It slams a massive fist into her, sending the holy woman flying backward. Del cries out in alarm, but she just brushes off the hit with a casual wink. She realizes her attacks are useless. The miasma just reconnects after every strike. The creature seems almost impressed, admitting she's stronger than it expected. It concludes their powers are simply a terrible match for each other. She insists it's fine, claiming she's always fought her battles alone. But Del clenches his fist, refusing to stand by and watch. She turns back, warning him to stay away from the coming battle. But Del has other plans, calling on his fiery companion Agni. The spirit of the Fire Lord erupts behind him, ready for a fight. Agni roars in excitement, eager to finally be let off the leash. The sudden eruption of flame catches the holy woman completely by surprise. The miasma creature recognizes the flame, calling out the escaped fire god. Lucia can only ask why, her mind reeling from this impossible sight. Del just smiles, declaring that as her knight he can't keep secrets from her. Lucia can only stare, her entire worldview shattered by this impossible revelation. But Del declares that for one day, she won't have to fight her battles alone. He steps forward, his blade of fire a beacon against the encroaching darkness. The miasma creature scoffs, taunting the weakened Fire Lord for even trying to fight. Agni roars in defiance, clearly not a fan of being called a coward. The monster grins, realizing it has a chance to capture two legendary beings at once. But Del steps in front of Lucia, insisting that this fight is his to handle. He channels his rage, knowing he needs every ounce of fury to fuel the sacred flame. The creature mocks him, claiming Agni is just a dying ember with no real power left. It lunges forward, a wave of darkness meant to swallow the last of their light. Del unleashes his own brand of purification, a great exorcism of flame. The sacred fire slams into the miasma, scattering its corrupted form. But the creature scoffs. Its ability to reconnect makes any attack useless. It's shocked to see the severed pieces are still burning, unable to reform. The sacred flame clings to the miasma, purifying the corruption at its source. Agni roars in triumph, mocking the mud thing for losing its swagger. Del explains to the holy woman that their flame is a perfect counter. Lucia realizes this is a different kind of power, a purification separate from her god's light. But the creature adapts, deciding to sever larger chunks to outpace the flames. Del realizes his opponent is smarter than it looks, and this fight is far from over. Lucia turns to Del with a very pressing question. Does he know how to cook? She explains her own specialty from her rough past was a simple cut and burn recipe. Del catches on, realizing his own fiery abilities are perfect for this particular menu. But the miasma creature is done playing games, unleashing a swarm of smaller monsters. With a determined grin, Lucia leaps into the air, announcing it's time to start cooking. Her blade of light becomes a blur, slicing through the corrupted horde with divine precision. The smaller creatures are diced into pieces, much to the main monster's frustration. Del follows her lead, his sacred flame shattering the miasma with every swing. They fight in perfect sync, a storm of light and fire purifying the battlefield. With the minions gone, Lucia declares the appetizers are officially finished. With the appetizers cleared, Lucia dives in, announcing the main course is here. The creature seems to beg for mercy as her holy blade descends upon it. But its eyes go dark, a clever feint that leaves Lucia momentarily confused. She realizes too late that she's fallen right into the monster's trap. A massive hand of miasma erupts from the very floor beneath her. The creature had hidden itself in the cracks, waiting for the perfect moment. She's caught in a pincer attack, trapped between two fronts of corruption. With her stance broken mid-air, she knows she can't possibly block both attacks. But as the monster gloats, a blade of fire intercepts the attack from below. Del appears at her side, ready to handle the top as she agrees to the plan. They fight back to back, a whirlwind of sacred fire and holy light. The creature can only stare in disbelief, its perfect trap completely shattered. Lucia thanks him, declaring they'll see this battle through to the very end. The monster panics, its one-on-one strategy failing spectacularly against two legends. They unleash a final devastating pincer attack, a storm of light and fire. But the sheer power of the flame is too much for Del to handle, threatening to consume him. Agni gloats from its perch, but Del cuts it off, calling it a small-time god. Lucia's playful demeanor is gone. She confirms he is the heretic from her divine oracle. Del isn't surprised, admitting that using so much power was bound to expose him. She reveals this entire battle was a test, a way to confirm her suspicions in private. Lucia admits she understands why he'd hide his power from a heretic hunter. She confesses that if their roles were reversed, she wouldn't trust herself either. Del agrees, admitting he was thinking the exact same thing. But seeing her fight alone, he says, changed his entire perspective. His answer leaves the holy woman completely and utterly speechless. He explains that he finally understands what it feels like to be on the receiving end of those words. He remembers pushing Marina away, blind to the feelings of his own family. With a newfound clarity, he declares that he simply can't leave her to fight alone. He wants to believe in her and help, a decision made just by looking in her eyes. But Lucia calls his reasoning half-hearted, telling him to stay out of her business. Del immediately backpedals, stammering an apology for getting too personal. But Lucia just smiles, admitting his sincerity makes her want him as her knight forever. Our boy is left completely speechless, clearly not ready for this level of commitment. She quickly changes the subject, reminding him their attacker might have accomplices. Del agrees, vowing to protect the Great Seal, and Lucia traps him with his own knightly honor. Elsewhere deep within the academy, a lone sword stands guard over that very seal. The masked intruder from before lies defeated, lamenting the loss of his 10-year-old miasma. He casts aside his broken helmet, vowing to repay the debt for his humiliation. For now, he'll follow his master's orders and focus on destroying the Holy Seal. He reveals their true goal, to corrupt all life and bring back the Underworld King, but a new voice chides the intruder, telling him a loser should know when to quit. The creature looks up in shock, recognizing the girl he thought he'd already expelled. She answers his question with a swift blow from her staff, sending him flying. With a smug smile, she reveals that supporting students is part of the principal's job.